ready to go home. There is no doubt.
Hey, did you bring enough for the whole crowd?
Maybe, maybe. Can you look at my bag and then look at you? Dennis, how are you feeling?
I'm good. Thank you.
I have a book that you would never forget. I have never seen so many people at my home. So beautiful. I can't believe it. If I die tonight, I'll
Dennis, you want some?
No, ma'am, I'm good. Thank you. You see your pretty picture up there?
I read it about 3 months ago.
How's Mr. Tony?
Oh, Tony.
She didn't talk right, did she? No.
We're gonna talk about movie, I don't know.
That's ours.
One second.
All right, how you doing, buddy?
I got it. If you don't mind, blue. Okay. You need a pen? Okay. I go get you one.
Live from the great city of Lula.
I want to thank everyone coming out tonight. Got a pretty good crowd here tonight. A lot of faces I don't know. I'll try to introduce myself to you later tonight. We've got a large agenda to go through, so we're going to get this thing started. And we'll try to get through it as fast as we can. We're not going to be home before dark, but we're going to try to get home pretty early. Is that fair enough? We're not going to make it by dark, unless you talk real fast. Everybody all seated and ready to go? All right. I want to thank everybody for that moment of silence. And let's stand and pledge allegiance to the flag, please. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, since we got such a long agenda tonight, we're going to limit citizen comments to the agenda. And if you got something to say about the agenda, say it. Otherwise, we'll save the discussion after the meeting or something like that if you want to do that. But right now, we're going to hold it to the agenda so we can get through this thing. Anybody got anything you want to talk about on the agenda tonight?
I have a lot to say, but the birthday party I had today shut my mouth. So I want to say one good thing. I love all of you, what you're doing, but there's a few outstanding people, Garnet Smith, Dennis Bergin, and Mr. and Mrs. Gale. They will drop everything with all the responsibility to help them come take care of me any day at any time. And I want to tell them how much I love, thank, and appreciate. I want all of you to know that. But I love all of you. That's all I got to say.
Thanks. That was on the agenda, by the way. It is his birthday today, in case somebody knows it. He's 98 years old today, and he's on the agenda, so he gets to speak that tonight. Anybody else got anything else you want to say? All righty. Everybody's got a copy of the minutes from the last meeting, the last two meetings, as a matter of fact. And if y'all look those over, we'll vote on Monday night. Okay? And the yard of the month?
Mr. Mayor, before we get started, may I request to make an amendment to today's agenda? I had requested line item 10 to be put on here. I'd like to strike that from the agenda for the time being.
I've got no problem with striking that item. Makes our meeting shorter. Thank you, Chip. We'll address that later. Is that fair enough? Address it later, possibly?
At another day.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that. Okay. All right. Everybody got your yard month coming up next Monday night. Y'all got till Monday night to pick it out. If you already get it picked out, James, you'll be willing to write it down now. If you don't have it picked out, you'll want to hear from you sometime by Monday night at 7 o'clock. Is that correct?
Sooner, but yes.
Yes, sooner so you can type it up, right? It takes a minute. It takes a minute, right? All righty. Finance. All right, Dennis, I guess it's time to count our money.
All righty now. Let's talk first. These are your bank balances, what's up on the screen. And here's your own little copies. And so things haven't changed all that much. However, I did add one item on there, and that's design and demo on Carter Alley. We'll talk about that a little bit more. That we want the council next week to appropriate $150,000 where we've had some discussion on the qualifying bids. So other than that, bank balances are pretty good. Interestingly enough, last month we got our SPLOST check for $67,000, and this month we got our SPLOST check for $53,000. 14. Last month was getting paid for December.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't it interesting how much that makes a difference? Currently, where bank balances are pretty standard, and the adjustments in the P&L statement, which we run internally for our sake, where we should be at about 33% remaining of the budget for revenue under the general fund. Good news is we've already collected, and we're at 21% remaining, so that's a good position for us to be in. So we've collected 79%. Expenditures, as everybody knows, doesn't matter what you make, it's how much you spend. Where we ought to be at about 33% remaining. We're at 37% remaining, which would give us positive cash flow right now with adjustments for about $252,000. Under the utility fund, again, where we ought to be at about 67%, 33% of the revenue collected. Remaining, again, we're in pretty good shape. We're at, we only have 21% remaining in revenue, so that gives us a positive position, and where we should be, again, where we only have 13% remaining on the expenditures on the utility side, but that has more to do with some of the adjustments. We still have a positive cash flow with adjustments right now of $73,636. Isn't it a nice position to be in when you can talk about being in a positive position rather than negative? And our third and fourth quarter overall is as to be expected, I guess would be the best way to say that. We have more expenses in third and fourth quarter. We also bring in more revenue. Computer hardware would be the next item we have. So Tony has been assisting the city because of his technological background. So if it all goes wrong, we know who to blame. Anyway, we've asked for an update on the pricing. I sent y'all some notes last week. We haven't gotten a change. Tony, you haven't seen anything, have you? No. So I anticipate that I'll have a solid number. Should be around $16,000. Is that right, Tony?
That sounds correct.
So we'll see what the adjustments come in. The other thing is services that he's providing, and if we adopt those services, it would require a budget adjustment for this remaining fiscal year, or you could enhance those services effective July 1. City reimbursement and expenses and compensation, that was brought up recently. Joey, have you put anything together on that?
Well, I can. It would be a matter for council. It was just not necessarily changing the budgeted amount. It was rather than do it by meal, just do it as a per diem. And if that's something, as council here at the work session says to move forward with, then that's an easy enough move, because it's, you can do it by resolution, because you're not increasing anything. You're really just recalculating how the per diem is paid, rather than breaking it out by breakfast, lunch, and supper. You just say the total for the day is X.
And I don't think I went back and looked at that. I don't think we've adjusted that since 2020. So it's probably due a review in that regard. And there's actually a couple of options available to you if you do it per day. The IRS actually has a schedule out that you can apply depending on your location. And that may be something the council wants to consider as well. Any thoughts?
So they just decided to do a per diem instead of?
Well, that's a choice y'all have, or we just adjust
Okay.
the meal amounts.
What was the per diem amount?
Depends again on, it could be up to $95 a day
Okay.
if you wanted to do that. But that would still require receipts. Is that right,
Right.
Joey?
Yes.
That's what they do.
So basically, the committee has approved a mill
Right.
adjustment.
By the meal. This was
Yeah.
brought up
Yeah,
for discussion when we sent out the email.
right. But so the meal that the committee approved so far is $90 a day, so
Right.
it's already been basically approved by the committee. So it's something that's we'll discuss later, looks like, unless y'all want to discuss it. Go carry it 95 now?
So we would amend the resolution to reflect that, so we just need to know what direction you want to go in so we can adopt it in that regard.
I make a motion to amend it to a per diem and not per meal, a daily per diem.
You want to put how much?
If I'm not mistaken, Dennis, what we
It'd
what
be
we
$90 if you
Yeah.
match the amount that they had approved by committee.
yeah, we're just taking the total amount of the 3 meals and making that the daily per diem. So that would be the 90.
I'll draft that, and you'll have it for Monday's meeting.
Right. Thank you.
The next item we have to talk about is we're having discussions with the county. I don't think it's a surprise to anybody, that they're looking for opportunities that the transportation splosh would make available. If that is to go forward, now it's a matter of how the dollars would be divvied, and it would be decided by the voters. So they would have the opportunity as a referendum as early as November to take that item on. So I bring that up because as we are having these discussions internally with all the local governments, we need to make sure that Lula North Hall is well represented as far as the amount of distribution. And what would happen if this goes forward in the coming weeks, and I actually have a meeting later on this week with it, we would create what's called an IGA, or an intergovernmental agreement, that those distribution dollars would be there. So it looks as much right now that they could generate, if the voters approve the referendum, up to over 5 years, $325 million, of which the majority of the projects would take place in the unincorporated area of Hall County, which is not surprising, and primarily in South Hall. The other side, by population division, the city would actually, city of Lula would gain over the 5-year period $2 million. So I bring this up, we keep having these conversations because they're maturing. Anybody got any questions on that?
Yeah, I would just want to make sure that we are planning accordingly, that in the event the referendum does fail, that we don't, we have our going concern for our own funding of our own roads.
Yeah, so the way that works is those would be all capital improvements, so SPLOST dollars have to only be spent, they can't be operational. So those are things that if it was to pass, you would have the opportunity in the future to designate how those dollars would be spent.
It would substantially reduce our election costs, though, if we had a countywide election.
Thank you for bringing that.
I was going to bring that up too.
Yeah.
It becomes their election instead of ours.
Yeah, well, that's true.
But
How would that work in conjunction with Banks County as well, though?
So we'd open the precinct would be available to Banks County voters. So they wouldn't have to go to Banks County. They could just come to, in this case, First Baptist Church.
So for those of us that live
In
on the other
Banks
side of
County,
the railroad
you go.
tracks, if there's something to vote in Banks County, we wouldn't have to go to two separate places. We
Right.
just do it all right here in Lula.
Right. That's correct. Let's hope we get that.
if county runs the election, if county goes to the referendum, if they don't go to the referendum, we're on our own
All
again.
gonna vote here. Yep. That's all I had on finance. If you had any more questions.
But then to answer Chip's question, if there's not a Hall County referendum, then you would have to vote on any Banks County issue in Banks County and then come to Lula to vote for the city election.
Yep. And my understanding, Banks County hasn't proposed any items for November at this point. Anything else? I'll go ahead.
I think we're going to the next item.
So water and sewer current conditions, a number of things that are all worthwhile in talking about. One, we talk about what the third and fourth quarter does. Well, third and fourth quarter seems like we spend more money. A couple of things that are on the list is we just finished closing down the Fifth Street pump station, so two things that are going to be available. One, we salvaged the two pumps that came out of their control panel, and we also have a generator over there. What I'm proposing back to the utility committee shortly will be to relocate the generator to the Oconee Street well, so we'll have another backup on our well system for a generator. And the other is to market the control panel and the two pumps out with other government agencies. We don't need to keep that. The pumps don't match anything that we have. The control panel itself, if you had to go out and buy the box tomorrow, it'd probably cost you $2,000, but it's just going to sit there and become a piece of junk. And I would suggest that we try to get rid of that as soon as we can. So we'll talk about that a little bit more with the utility committee. I'm just bringing that up. the idea of, we're gonna renovate the Oconee well location anyway, so, we'll probably be seeking a few dollars just for bringing in the pad and, relocating that generator back over there. It's a big bad boy, so it'll cost us a few dollars. We've got the transfer switch and what have you, so hopefully all that'll work out. Next item is we are closing out sewer line I. I don't want to talk about that too much yet, but it appears to be under budget. You'll know that before the end of the week. Ironically, or sadly, we had a payment for December that never went out, so we approved it. Joe, you approved it. So we're all good in that regard, and have been reimbursed for it, so we'll see how that shakes out. Before the end of the week, I'll send everybody the totals on that. So we're really encouraged. Just remind everybody that line is operational now. So thank goodness for that. We've got a resolution for utility billing. I sent everybody on the, so we have a customer policy that we hand out with everybody as they walk in. It tells them all about our services. So two things have changed in there. Our garbage service, you know, how we collect on Mondays and Tuesdays. And, now that they've automated some of that services in there, as well as y'all recently approved the water and sewer tap fees, or TCRs. So that's the biggest change. I think y'all saw that in an email last week. So we'll be asking you for that approval. Other than that, I don't even like to talk about ammonia, but I guess I can because we've solved that problem, at least, and we think we've isolated where the problem came from. And so we're going out of our way to manage that. Other than that, operationally, we still have one opening at the waste treatment facility. So anybody got any words on that, let me know, because we're not getting the applications we'd like for. Anybody got any questions on water and sewer?
Yes. So the resolution 0316-2020, I'm sorry, that's 2023. That's what's highlighted on page 3 and 13, just referencing, or I'm sorry, 3 and 4 of 13 pages. Is the only change what's highlighted in yellow on page 4?
Because I don't have that in front of me, and you do, I'll look at what you got.
Sure.
How about that?
Yeah, this is 2023A
Page
under
10 changed
utility.
Page 10 changed it.
No, that's old.
That's old?
Yeah, that's existing.
Okay.
The changes I sent y'all should have been identified in the email itself. And like I said, I described those as TCRs
Yeah.
and the collections
Page 10.
for solid waste collections.
Does that cover, I mean, all of these that are on here, it's just the one resolution that's part of this packet, the 3/20/2023, correct?
Right.
That's the new one, okay. All right, I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Yep.
So
Good
the
question.
resolution would be 23, not 20 on here?
Well, it'll show
It's
as the
amended.
amendment,
It's
yeah,
amendment.
2023.
Amendment will be the 23.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
What other questions? That's a good one.
Actually, I have one.
Good.
We had an incident this past Monday. All 3 of my cans did not get emptied. So I called, spoke to Teresa about it, and I guess there's been some kind of confusion with the new vendor that we're using to take up the trash. I don't consider myself to be the smartest guy in the room, but it seems to me if there are 3 trash cans, they're probably paying for 3 trash cans, especially if they're, you know, they've got that stamp on the side and it's not some Home Depot trash can. Might want to have another conversation with them about that. But then also, I found out that they're going to garbage trucks now that it's automated. There's no longer going to be somebody bringing the can to the back. There's going to be an arm. And because of that, the trash cans have to be so far apart. I don't recall getting anything in the mail or any other kind of communication that's what they were going to. And that's kind of an important thing to know.
So we actually found out last week. We published it on the website. Tangi will tell you that I had interesting conversation with them today. So they won't
sure
be,
it was.
listen, this is all a matter, like I said, they've got the cart in front of the horse, and we made that more than clear with them today. Let me go back to your first statement. So they're having issues with, they're not our problems, they're their problems, and we're gonna make sure they correct it. The number of cans that are collected and what have you, they go by what's in their computer. If it says 2, they pick up 2. That's a problem that they're gonna figure out because they've got the right information, so that's being addressed. The automated trucks now, that's one of the things that's gonna be referenced in the utility procedure. But we're gonna have a 3-month, what we agreed to today, a leniency period, because for the very reason you just described, they're gonna be mailing out postcards to all our customer billings, and we should get that out probably by the end of the week. So, it takes a while to make these type adjustments and what have you. So, we're not real happy right now, but, we're managing and we're addressing it, we'll put it that way. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you for addressing it.
We're also aware that a lot of the citizens are complaining about this, and we're not ignoring anybody. We're still working on the problems.
Sure.
You mentioned new vendor, so.
It's not a new.
It's not a new vendor.
It's just a new drive. We do have a new driver in the area. It's still the same company.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted to.
Okay, I thought it was because we had switched vendors
No,
here
it's-
recently.
No, they
No.
bought out our
Same
previous,
vendor.
Advance got bought out by Waste Management.
Right.
Yes. So it's still the same company.
Yep.
It's a lot bigger company too.
So I have a quick question regarding the waste management as a vendor. Do we have a contract that council can view or anyone
Sure.
can view? Because I'd like to know what it has in their contract as far as remedies are concerned and the responsibilities of the city should the vendor fail. I know that wouldn't be part of their contract, but certainly would be something that we would handle.
No, it's in our contract.
It's in our contract.
Okay, I just
We
want to make
approved that
sure,
last year.
and I'll just, tag on, I know that it's a problem with others in the city. I haven't had my trash picked up since probably the second week of January.
If we're not aware of it, we
I'm
can't
not
fix it.
calling.
Yeah, but we need
but
to know.
I want to make sure that we have in our contract and what we put out to our citizens, how they can get their missed pickups addressed. I'm gonna make sure that we're communicating that properly.
So that's in your
City
procedure.
Hall.
You just need to call in the day that it's missed.
Mm-hmm.
And like today, we had issues from yesterday and we pursued those today. It needs to be timely, so we want the vendor to provide the services they're contracted for.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we put a work order on every item. Surprisingly, we recognize the problems we have. One is always too many, but surprisingly, the frequency that were reported, that's why it's important that you pick up the phone and let us know. Last week we had some issues, Tangi, that we were able to resolve, but as a rule, if we have 10 complaints a week, that's more than we normally get. But again, if we're not hearing about them, we can't resolve them.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned the postcards that would be coming. Is that going to be mailed from Waste Management
Yes.
themselves? And they're not seeking any additional compensation for that outside the current contracted rate?
Of course not.
Okay. And you'd mentioned that they are operating on a, they're picking by computer.
Right.
So, do they have? I guess when we do report, misses, they'll try to understand, where that failed in their computer, because I'm assuming that
So
they
here's the problem.
validate that they actually picked up a can at a particular
Oh, they
location.
can validate, but here's the real problem. The real problem is they haven't updated their system to reflect all our billing locations. So if you have 2 cans at one location, they're recognizing on their inboard computer they only have 1. Well, that isn't our problem, that's theirs, and we've been assured that they'll pick them up if they're out there.
Yeah.
They've made excuse, they just didn't have time to enter the data. Well, that sounds all well and good, but that's not good enough for us. If can's out there, Chip, as an example, we're gonna have the can picked up.
Yeah. And last question that I have would be, under the current contract, what is the duration of that contract and when does it expire?
So that's a good question. I think we approved it last year, Joey. It's a
Yep.
5-year contract.
Right.
You'll have a copy of that tomorrow.
Are there clauses in that contract that we could evaluate that might, cause them to fail? did they list those items that would cause them to fail or breach their own contract?
So we have a notice of remedy that's in that contract, and that pretty much describes what their obligations are and ours.
Okay, thank you.
And also, just for you folks out there, if one of your cans or any of your, if your garbage gets missed to any degree, you call in, as provided you give enough time. I think I had called in at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that. And by sometime that afternoon, I don't know exactly what time, the city guys came by and got my third trash can that I brought back out to the road. So the city will do its part to rectify the situation in the immediate. But again, like Dennis said, waiting on Waste Management
Timely helps us.
to update their stuff on their end. But yeah, it's got to be timely though. You can't call it 4:55 and expect them to come out that evening to get your can.
Or 3 days later.
Or that too, yeah.
Well, everybody's pretty good about it. And we don't, like I said, we don't have that many complaints, but one is more than we want. And now with the change in drivers, it brings its own little challenges, but those are theirs, not on us. So we'll continue to work. We had I'm going to call it a pleasant conversation today, but it was also very vocal. So, and they responded pretty well.
The bigger complaint I'm hearing is damaged garbage can, not
Yeah,
necessarily.
they've gotten better at it,
Yeah,
but
there
they
are-
squeeze them all. And, if you get a damaged cart, you need to let us know and we'll get that replaced.
And once they get better trained on this arm, they'll learn how to set it back down and stand it up instead of laying it in the middle of the road somewhere. So,
It's not as bad as it was.
yeah, it's,
That's the good news. So maybe they're getting a little better.
back on stormwater.
All right, so there's two things going on here. We'll take this to the utility committee. One is the drainage that runs out on the railroad right-of-way and takes care of the underpass and goes across from the New Mexican restaurant. That was probably put in, not exaggerating, over 100 years ago. And it was probably put in either through the railroad or a combination of Georgia DOT. That infrastructure couldn't be older, and that's good and bad. And but currently, that's why I said there's two issues here. The school, for all their water that they drain off their property, they run it through there. Well, as you know, we're working with the school to make another addition, and one of the requirements is they're going to have to transfer their stormwater to another location because we don't need a failure out there. And there's two culverts, one on Chattahoochee, one on there's three actually, Carter Alley, Chattahoochee, and Carter Street. The Chattahoochee and Carter Street culvert pipes probably, well, without a question, one of them needs to be, got some corrective measures, but we need to size those based on the amount of stormwater that's coming from the school system. So you're going to hear me come back. We're going to have an engineering proposal come back to the utility committee for consideration with the idea that we'll identify what corrections need to be made as far as any improvements to the existing infrastructure. Carter Street, as we know, has some failure in there, so we want to fix that. But more so, we match the volume with the pipe sizing in that way. My idea is then to go back, we'll be able to actually calculate the amount of stormwater comes off of the school system and have them participate to some extent in that cost. So that will be maturing over the next couple of months. We've already got some numbers coming from the school system, so then we have to match our circumference and radius and the amount of flow. So we'll go from there. Not going to be an inexpensive venture. We'll just put it that way, because we probably Carter Street as an example, probably every bit of that pipe will have to come out to be resized and repaired in that regard. So we'll keep you in the loop.
Are there grants out there that would
Not
help with
for
this?
something like, not for the infrastructure, unfortunately not. But we're going to see what we run into. It's just something that it's not immediate, but it is in regards to this type thing. You have to understand now they hope to begin construction, well, they've said as early as this summer. I don't know they'll be successful with that, with the idea that they would open in next August. So we'll see.
Next year.
Yes.
Does all of the stormwater go into our wastewater treatment plant?
No.
Okay.
It's all free falls into current creek lines. But good question. And on that, you actually don't want your storm water to go to your waste treatment plants.
That's a bad thing.
Yep.
All right. Los Arcos.
So this came up, I gave y'all a copy of, I'm not sure exactly what they want to do. I've spoken with the owner. He's proposed putting a deck on a property he doesn't claim to own, nor does adjoining property own. Then there's the issue of parking. Joe, you might know about this more than Felton, I think, was the one who was behind some of this discussion. When I talked with the owner, he couldn't tell me anything more than what I've told you.
Yeah. What I'm thinking he wants to do, I'm not positive for sure. Is anybody here from Los Arcos want to speak to this? I don't see anybody. I'm thinking, like I said, I'm not totally in the loop either, but it looks like he wants to build a deck on the back side of the building, but it'd be a highly elevated deck, maybe 14 foot off the ground, something like that, to match his first floor level. That's what I think he wants to do, and I think we just sit on this and let them come back and tell us exactly what they want and bring us some.
So if they can meet, you know, the building permit requirements, really wouldn't be something that would have to come back to the council if they can work that in.
Yeah.
Now, I understood that they wanted to build a deck on the side of the building.
I'm not sure about that. I've
Yeah.
heard that rumor. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, the only issue we'd have there is we don't control that
Right.
property.
Next door neighbor.
Right.
So we're stuck in the middle of this one, looks like.
So, you know, I'm going to take that off the agenda, and I have talked to him about it, so maybe he can come down here and draw out, which
Right.
is normally what he'd want, as long as he meets, you know, the building code requirements. It shouldn't be an issue
Yep.
as far as that goes.
Bring us a real application
Right.
for a permit. So. All right, Carter Alley. Here, this is the one I've been waiting on.
Well, unfortunately, I don't have qualified bids yet, but I think I
Shucks.
told y'all last week, we'll have them this week. So we had 7 bidders come in, and, you know, the demolition on those 4 homes too with the asbestos seemed to come in pretty competitive. There were 7 bids, 3 of them came in within $20,000 of each other on the low side, so that should be encouraging. The low bidder has been notified. It looks like there's not going to be an issue on that. So if you go back to what I did on bank balances on the projects, this will kind of give you an idea. I had identified $150,000. $30,000 of that we had talked about from the last work session of hiring a design architect for 6 months.
You read my mind.
So you can start doing the math, and maybe you figure out how close that bid would be, the bid amount. So hopefully that'll give you some direction. You'll have all the numbers once those are qualified. I did expect to have them already today when actually I expected them. I would have had them Monday, but nonetheless.
I have a quick question about
Sure.
that. So, is the downtown beautification committee going to be part of this process with Carter Alley?
The public's going to be part of this development. It's not. It's not just
yeah,
downtown.
sure. I know the
but
public will be, but like for some of the, I guess you would say, not menial stuff, but just some of the day-to-day stuff, like I don't know, input into how we're going to address the huge grade from Athens Street going up the hill, like.
that's part.
So let's talk about what happened in the work session and the committee meeting, so everybody, the audience understands as well. So in that, the opportunity was that the council got to see some conceptual ideas of what the land layout might offer and the several alternatives there, as well as the facade design and what they would like that Then the idea is that we would hire a design architect, take all the comments, and there were many comments y'all brought forward, and give those to the design architect. He would come back with a more solid conceptual plan, and that could even mean the site plan would change, wouldn't surprise me. And then, the design and what have you. And maybe we said up to 6 months, maybe in 3 months, he brings back something that council can first look at and say, yep, this is the direction y'all had wanted them to go in. And then, if you have some conceptual designs, you would take them for public comment with the idea any changes would be adopted by the council. Back to your original question, as far as design and engineering, that would come after the fact. We don't see any design issues or engineering issues on that property as we sit and talk right now. So, the one thing that did come out of the finance committee meeting is when I asked, well, what committee we're going to send this to, I believe finance said that they wanted to keep. Initially, my hope is within 30 days I can bring y'all applications for the design or the architect designer. And they said they wanted to hear that. Is that right, Mr. Mayor?
I think they said they wanted it to go to Park and Recs,
I don't know.
I was told finance.
or Finance and Parks and Recs.
I left that at home.
Well, we're going to share it at both. It doesn't matter. It's going to be for
everybody's gonna
everybody.
hear it.
And at the end of the day, we need somebody to do the interviews with the design architect. And so at the end of the day, the council will eventually have the approval and the consideration. So we just hope we can, my hope is we can bring in 3 design architects within those dollar amounts that we're talking
My
about.
question on that, I feel like that it should go, instead of Park and Rec, would be part of downtown beautification. The committee would be the downtown beautification instead of Park and Rec, I feel like.
Downtown beautification and development.
And development, yeah, I feel
Yep.
like that's the committee.
Maybe
it
that's
really
where-
should go to instead of the Park and
And-
Rec committee.
That was my recommendation. But I'd certainly support it. At the end of the day, the council gets to say grace over it.
If we're all gonna hear it, so.
Well, I'm worried about, I just want to get a design architect on board. And that's initially what
Yeah.
That committee could, approve to begin with.
So is the architect going to be the one that goes out, does the site survey, and gets the layout of the land?
So we have all the survey information, they would combine all
Oh,
that.
okay.
So, like I said, we don't see an issue with developing that property. Depends, if you want to make a mountain out of something that's not a mountain right now, that could be another issue. But we're not, from that perspective, we're not seeing issues.
There are no site surveys really at this point because it's of the
So
conceptual.
each property has been surveyed individually, so what you saw in the conceptual drawings reflects that survey. It'll be defined a little bit more once, and of course, once you decide this is the site plan we want to use, conceptual, I still think you'll have 3 conceptual ideas. That would be our goal, so you're not forced to pick A. You'd have A, B, C. Very similar to the conversation we had with, where does the building align? I think you'll see some changes with that too.
Okay.
Okay, going to number 8, zoning and planning committee.
So we have adoption of amendment, I'll pull that up here. So this is one we've been talking about for the adoption of residential building requirements for the IBC. So we took this back to committee, as y'all know. I think everybody was in attendance. And we think we've made all the changes. We've had public hearings. Actually, we've had 3 public hearings on this. So the committee's recommendation was to adopt these changes.
And we'll vote on it next Monday, is that correct?
It would be on the agenda. Any thoughts on that?
Okay, no discussion.
Was there, what changes were made?
The changes that y'all had applied previously were adopted into that. And then I think the only thing that was any significance, which we changed that, was when the dumpsters would come in. Maybe that was, I can't remember, it's been so long.
This
We've
is
done
what
this,
we voted
we've been doing
on.
this since July,
Yeah,
yeah.
this is
Yeah.
what we already voted on
Right.
with the
Well-
few changes. Okay.
I'll just let you all review it again this week and make mention of anything that is of concern before we vote
Sure.
next Monday.
All right. Next thing is the subdivision regulations.
So we got those.
Yeah, Joey, is that the one we just looked at?
Yeah, we'd like to take that to, we talked about that with planning and zoning. We'd like to take that to public comment for next month, Joey.
Yes, I'll advertise for a public hearing for April the 17th. And I just tell mayor and council that I ask you to review those proposed regulations between now and then so that the 17th, you'll have your public hearing and you'll be entitled to vote on it that evening as well. But there's quite a bit of material. We had to wait till we got the zoning ordinance amended before we could finish this one.
And this kind of goes
that the same
hand in
one?
hand.
Is that the same one you're talking about?
No. That's
I may have
that's
it.
utility
Okay.
procedure.
It's this one, Mayor, should say subdivision regulations.
Oh, okay.
And
I-
y'all,
I didn't bring it.
y'all got that, but and the same thing, I would anticipate where we want to go to public hearing in April, that we hear those public hearing and comments if there are any, and then with the idea that maybe we don't take a vote until May.
You can't,
You know, that way, if there are changes to be made, our hands not being forced, everybody gets a chance to take it in a little bit more. Because there might be, primarily what's gonna happen is the development, it can be an individual as well, so don't misunderstand that. But the goal is for subdivisions of property, that they have certain performances that you're not gonna find in the zoning requirements. So they mirror each other, they go hand in hand in a lot of ways, but the expectations and the requirements are laid out specifically where you'll find them in the subdivision regulations.
All right, number 9, the Lula Belton Historic Society has requested to use the ball field for the Fall Festival September 29th and for the Animal Car Show June 9th and 10th. Anybody got anything you want to say about that?
The only thing you might want to note, this is annual. They've done this before, and last year they were very successful with doing the fall festival at the ball fields. And Chip pointed out that the dates that they've requested don't reflect necessarily, like for the car show, I think was the one you were pointing out. The Friday before allows them to set up. The Saturday is actually the date of the car show.
And that's the same with the fall festival. We're going down to a single-day fall festival.
I recommend we go ahead and do this.
Well, you'll get your opportunity
Maybe
next
Monday-
week because
Monday
it'll be
night.
on the agenda.
We go vote? September is- All right. We'll skip number 10. Listen, the city charter. Somebody wanted to update the city charter for a civility resolution and a code of conduct. Is that?
Yes, I had asked to bring that up. Tony and I recently went to our mandatory training for, I was about to say new hire. it's
Newly elected.
Newly
Thank
elected.
you, newly elected officials. And there's a lot of great information packed into those 2 days. One of which that they talked about was making sure that your city charter is updated and viable. I believe that our city charter, correct me if I'm wrong, the last time it was amended or had anything done to it was 1994.
2003.
Oh, it was 2003. Okay, we're still at.
But that was minor in regards, the actual document originated in 1974.
Yeah, the main thing
Or
changed
74, right.
was the
So
It went to
we're
5
still
districts.
20 years having not really done anything to our city charter. I know that Tony, I'm going to throw you under the bus here. Tony and I were talking about this, and he and I are going to sit down, and we're going to go through the charter just kind of sentence by sentence, line item by line item, to look at anything that might need to be added, anything that's no longer relevant that needs to be removed from it, and make our city charter more applicable to 2023 and moving forward for the next 10 years. That includes, which I see somebody had presented for us here, the civility resolution and code of conduct for council members, and how we are to present ourselves here at the council to the public, as well as the expectations of the public when speaking and addressing the council as well. Is this something that we already have, or is this this proposed for discussion? It says draft resolution. Is this something that we already have, or was this taken from somewhere else?
So I took the liberty, I had brought some of this forward back in December, I think, so I took the liberty of updating to reflect the city of Lula. Neither of these have been adopted. Joe actually read one in January, I believe, on civility.
Yes, sir, I did.
So, and then what you've seen, that's why it said draft on it, was I took the document and put in our names, I mean, the city of Lula, and that reflected. So no, I mean, we haven't adopted neither one of those.
Okay.
The city of Cornelia did adopt one last month, as a matter of
Right.
fact.
Yeah, it's been adopted now by,
Yeah,
I think,
this is the one that-
23 cities.
Yeah.
So,
That's the one I read.
yep.
So that's not this one here.
Yes,
It
it
is.
is.
Oh, it is
It's
this
worded,
one.
it's worded a little differently, but yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll read it again for you. It's the nine pillars of civility. Be considerate of others' opinion. It's okay to disagree. Manage your emotions. Get curious instead of furious. A silent voice is not always a weak voice. Sometimes it's okay not to respond. Be kind. Make your point about the issue, not the person. Actively listen to learn how to engage respectfully. Think about the impact of your actions and not the intent. Ask questions to learn. Answer questions with respect. Remember the acronym QTIP. Quit taking it personal. Number 9, have empathy. Just because you have not experienced it does not mean it does not exist. It's not quite worded the same way, but this is what Cornelia adopted. And
So do we want to keep that on the agenda for adoption?
Yes. I recommend keep it on the agenda for adoption.
And y'all get a chance to talk about it a little bit more as well. But, and then let's talk about.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
the reason why I wanted to bring up the idea of revisiting the charter, I know Tony and I discussed that we would be willing to. Obviously, we can't have too many people, because then you'd have a quorum, and then, it would have to be, which we don't mind. I don't mind if it's a quorum and people come in and hear what we're doing, but for the sake of hey, Tony, can you meet up tomorrow evening? Yeah, hey, let's meet up and let's go over some of this stuff. We might be able to get through it faster, but we don't want to deny anybody else on council the ability to meet with us and go over this. So that's why I wanted to bring it up, to see if we needed to make a temporary committee for reviewing this and renewing our charter, or how does the council want to, Mr. Mayor, how would you like? Do you have
state
anything
law
on that?
says that we cannot have more than 3 at a meeting. Is that correct, Joey? That's
So we
correct.
can have 3, not more than 3.
No, you cannot have 3.
Oh,
That
can't
constitutes a quorum of this council.
Okay,
You can
so
have
we got
2.
2.
Now, anytime y'all want to talk among yourselves, that's great.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I encourage it. I want y'all to do that personally. Y'all talk to me too. I'm not scared of you. Y'all don't be scared of me either. That's the main things. But we can't do it all at one time. That's the, because
Unless we were to
it
officially
violates.
have a committee.
One of the things that we can do, though, is when we do have our committee meetings, which I know we've been doing consolidated committee meetings, we could get it on the agenda. Well, no, it wouldn't be. There's no particular committee for this, is there?
No, that's why you might want to design a committee.
A
just-
temporary committee.
A committee.
Sound like you got 2 volunteers. Let me
a
throw
committee
this
of
in too.
committees, right?
Let me throw this out here, so Joey can speak to this as well. So we're not the only city that went back to the early 70s and adopted this type of ordinance that doesn't reflect our, let's call it a business model now. The good news is that we're not going to be the first ones that want to update it. So, and Joey can speak to this, we understand this has to be adopted by the legislature. Y'all have to obviously do it internally, but we also know what the legislature is going to find acceptable. So consequently, probably in the last 10 years, there's been a real move that charters have been updated. I think Oakwood updated theirs. I know Flowery Branch updated theirs. I know Gainesville's changed theirs significantly, but theirs had been changed a number of times. So we have some sample charters that you might want to look at that way. You've heard the strong mayor, weak mayor. You probably heard all that when you were the newly elected. But I'll bet you $1 to a donut that Joey has several that he can also make y'all aware of. So that way, one, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and two, you still stay within the confines of what the legislature is going to approve. Is that a fair statement, Joey?
So GMA is
Very good.
Yes.
At that.
very involved with it because they have samples that have worked and that the legislature has approved. So I do recommend that you designate folks who are gonna go through it line by line, but then it needs to come back to council, and it will be several times it will come back to council to go through some particular items. And then we would contact GMA, and then most particularly is get on our local delegation, state delegation's agenda early. By early, I mean August or
Yep,
September.
that's what I was going to say, August.
Yeah, so that they know this is what we're asking for, and you can tell them that y'all all approve it, or we get their input, and we're able to tell them GMA will also assist, because GMA is down there, Georgia Municipal Association is at the legislature every day, and they can help us marshal it forward.
Is this something that's going to require a public hearing?
I would recommend it, because
Yeah.
that's the first thing the local delegation is gonna ask, is what did your community say?
Now, if we don't decide to have a temporary committee, and let's just say Tony and I do this, is this something where the Friday before the special session, we can say, hey, can we get this added to the agenda? Because you know how we meet as a council before we break into the committees. Is that something that we could have added to the agenda to discuss on that special sessions?
I mean, it's
Yep, whatever y'all have, sure.
Okay. I mean, I'm glad to do it either way, just wanting to make sure that, that I have a clear understanding of how we should move forward with this to be as productive as we can be in as timely manner as possible.
Yeah, I think we would be able to, parse through it and consolidate, highlighted areas of change, and that way it wouldn't necessarily need a committee, but we could bring it to entire council's attention just for discussion. And then that way everyone has seen these things as we continue to move forward with it. And then at some point, we feel that we've got a consolidated amount that would be worthy of making a change to the charter. Then, of course, we could all, go through that process with public hearing. But I think that it would be okay for us to bring items of consideration just for discussion, just as we do on the agendas today.
It'd be helpful, Joey, if you got some sample charters that you could bring forward and maybe just copy the full council.
I'll send that, and
Well, I
encourage you to check on the GMA website as well. They've
Yep.
got some good stuff.
Yeah, Pete is our district rep. He's gonna, all I gotta do is let him know when I'm ready, and he's gonna email me some samples as well.
Likely will be the same.
Long overdue.
Can the citizens have an impact on what needs to change in there also?
There'll be a public hearing on that once we get everything.
Although he does bring up a good point, so like, if a citizen has an idea of, hey, can we put this in the city charter, or is this already in the city charter? Would that just simply, they would call one of us and give us their input on it, so that it can be considered during this process that?
We'll be discussing this during the work session, so it'll be on the agenda, so we can have a citizen comment that way.
So just have it as part of the citizen comments since it's on the
Or,
agenda.
or we can actually address it. They can contact council too if they got an idea that might
Okay.
apply. I mean, we want everybody to talk to us.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what we want to do. We can't do it by ourselves. We're gonna need the input. Okay, where we at, 13?
12.
12.
I thought we just covered, council being able to discuss items between committee sessions. Yes, talk to each other. Is that
No,
all?
so I'm the one that put this on here, and what I meant specifically is on that special session that we have on Monday, after we're done meeting as a council, we then go into the committee meetings. So just because of the fact that we're all here, I don't know if this would be in violation of any laws or statutes, but let's say the finance committee, they just met, the utility committee meets, and then we're like, hey, we need a pump. Well, we just heard finance committee, so we know we got the money. Utility just made a mention of needing it. Could we go back into special session, since we're all here, to discuss it so that it can be put on the next available agenda to vote on it, instead of having to wait till like a month later?
So that
Well,
would be procedural.
The work sessions are not voting sessions.
That's what I'm saying.
They're not voting sessions.
Right.
Correct.
They gotta have,
But like, let's say we just met on the first Monday, which is our special work session, right? Which is when we also have the committee meetings. And let's say that during those committee meetings, we find that something happened and utility committee needs something that requires a vote. We're all there already. Could we not go back into our special work session, since all the council members are present, so we can discuss it as a council, so that it can go?
public notice has to be given before any votes. Am I right?
But the public's already here.
Here's where.
Public notice, advance public
Oh.
notice.
Right.
Okay.
Here's where the tie comes in, is that if you don't have a regular scheduled meeting, so this is normally the Monday is the regular scheduled meeting for the work session, and then you have a regular scheduled meeting for your voting session. We have added the special call meetings for the committees, but the law is that when you have a special call meeting, we are to provide notice of the purpose of that special call meeting, and if you've not given that reason as a purpose, and it's not an emergency, obviously there's exceptions for emergencies, then the better practice is to not go back in and have a discussion of an item that was not listed in the basis for the special call.
Okay.
So, just for clarification, the expectation would be, let's say you have, committee A, B, and C meeting after a special session. So, committee, we do a special session, we commence committee A, discussion is made, others can attend, the public can see it, other council members that are not on the committee can sit here and kind of see, but we can't speak to it. And I know this is what you're wanting to address, Chip. Since we've just gotten this information from Joey, the only remedy that we have would be, as it is now, where the expectation would be for the members of Committee A, if they need something and we're expected to vote on it, my expectation would be the members of Committee A reach out afterwards individually to all, council members, as we do today, to make sure that what was discussed in that committee meeting that we may not have been able to see clearly is discussed before we actually, or at least presented as what's expected before the next meeting, so that we're all aware of what's happening, rather than the committee saw these things, we talked about it, this is our recommendation, because it's that moment that we could vote, we're all looking at it and saying, well, I've got a few questions. I was in the room, but I was not allowed to ask a question. So the expectation would be that the committee members, communicate effectively with each other during that week prior to the voting session. That's just for clarification.
You're exactly right. That's the beauty of having all the committees meeting on the same night. Everybody's here. Everybody can interact with each other either before or after. That's the beauty. That's the one good thing about this meeting all the meetings on one night.
It's that in between week
Yeah.
that matters the most.
But
So let me just throw out one thing, just for y'all to consider. Committee meetings talk about, specific to a topic, but oftentimes there's A, B, and C that might be offered for consideration. It's not always that a committee meeting is going to be able to come out and say, well, let's do C, but more so for them to weigh, is A better than B, then better than C? They may be hearing it for the first time, as an example. So oftentimes, what I'm going to suggest to you, there's not an ability to take action on something. And if the committee groups doing a good job of, they are going to communicate that over a period of the month. What we see other cities to do, talk with Pete, and other counties to do, that's the great part of the committee. It allows you to weigh things out, not be forced right then and then to say, oh, we're going to take A, or we're going to take, you get to think about it, ponder it. Or, as often is the case, they'll ask me and I won't know the answer, but this will give me the time to find a defined answer so they can come back. So I think y'all may be trying to put too much weight on what the committee can do and what they can't do. They can't do anything without y'all's approval. But as the example I give you we talk about the utility committee, I don't need y'all to understand how to run a wastewater treatment plant or the water system, but I do need you to understand the expectations and the expertise that comes with the people that are going to advise to you. No different from finance from that. Yes, I want everybody to have all their eyes on finance. The money's right. We might have a chance of doing other things right. But at the same time, you don't have to be the guru. Or, a good example, Carter Alley. Y'all don't have to be design architect. That's why you're hiring an expertise on it. You don't have to be an attorney. That's why you have a city council attorney that advises you what he's familiar with. That's what you probably need to rely on oftentimes. Not unusual for Joey to come up and say, we want to accomplish this with planning and zoning. Well, he tells you the method to be able to adopt that. Very similar to, like tonight, the resolution we talked about for civility. The actual verbs, I like what you say better than what the actual resolution that comes from GMA, but at the end of the day, it gives you the teeth in adopting it. You see what I'm saying? So sometimes in committee, you don't feel like your hand is ever forced, that the council never gets the opportunity to see it. If it's done right, you're always going to get the opportunity to see it in its specifics, is the way I would say it. I'm just concerned that y'all think you're being left out of the equation. This has been found successful because it allows you to be wrong, it allows you to correct it, it allows you to weigh it, all those different things. So just bear that in mind as you're looking to see what opportunities might present themselves.
That was a really good government lesson there. I appreciate that.
Well,
You've
bigger
been here-
problem's going
you've
to be
been
when
ra-
they ask me a question, I go, gee, I don't know.
You've been around a lot longer than we have.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the answer to that question would be.
That gets us down to 13, or we've already answered 13, is that correct?
Yes.
All right. The comprehensive land use plan update committee meeting is tomorrow night at Thursday night at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
It's going to be right here. If anybody in the public has not done it, the survey is on the website. There's a barcode, a QR code on the back. It's not on the agenda this week, is it? No.
There's copies over there. They can pop it on there. It's further on down the list. They can adopt it and participate. We've had a good participation so far.
So, all right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I want to go back to this right there, about the architect, about the, I believe we made a proposal, we're gonna pay the architect, will, once if we get up with anything, kind of money, on the architect go.
The committee recommended $30,000 startup fee.
That was what finance talked
I
about.
mean, yeah,
So that was kind of giving us a ballpark.
plus the bid for demolition, that's what Dennis is asking for, and it's $150,000 to cover that
And the demolition.
and the demolition.
Right.
That's what's on.
I just want to make sure we had, that I understood what we paying for that, I let it go by there.
Perfect question.
Right, we're not scared to go back either, or admit we're wrong. It gets us down to number 15. Am I correct? Yeah, we get there. Garnet, there's a hope, there's hope. Number 15 is,
So I've got some information for y'all if you hadn't seen it already.
Is the lady here tonight
Yes.
that's wanting to rezone that?
and her husband.
Did she come up and address what she's gonna do?
I've got no problem with that. Hey, Macy.
Hey, how are y'all?
How you been?
I'm Macy Boland. Me and my husband own 6553 Main Street. I've had a business in there for the past 4 years with a business license through the city of Lula, and I know several other property owners before me have. And we're just requesting the correct zoning for the property. I know it's zoned commercial through Hall County. I know it's completely different, but it's also listed as like a general business zoning. But as far back as like the 1930s to 1950s, it's always been some kind of business in there. I know the Perkles had a store there in the 50s, and then it was also brought to my attention that around the 1930s, 40s, there was a women's store in there as well. But we're just trying to get it zoned properly on paper.
How is it zoned now?
Zoned residential 3.
It is
It's
zoned,
been, what she just described, she's absolutely right. I mean, that's the way it's been forever and a day. We identified I think 186 properties that don't reflect their current zoning.
Yeah.
So then it's a matter, and we've talked about this in years past as well as a couple of weeks ago. So it's certainly something we want to encourage. What I gave y'all in the packet today, the problem is, the example is, Macy, when you and I talked the other day was, a gentleman called up, he wanted to put a restaurant there, and the lot is rather small, but it is what it is. I think it's recognized as not even a tenth of an acre. Well, so what's it best suitable for? Because you have different classifications in your zoning districts. That's why I copied y'all all on that. So I think, Tony, in your email that you sent last night, you said general use. Well, that's why I identified highway business might be your best, because it's the only one that identifies best, or in this case, general business. So it's a matter, what you don't want to do is this is why it's always left up to the property owner, what they want to define, what district they want to be, rather than the city define it. Mm-hmm. She's liable to go, the example I gave was, where right now the gentleman had an interest in the restaurant. Well, if that didn't go forward and the next guy wants to operate an insurance office or something like that, you want to make sure that you didn't have to rezone it again to accommodate him. So that's why I didn't know if, Tony, from the direction I got from you and Joey was that you want to go ahead and do it. Well, we would need to know the classification so we can advertise that.
What is it currently being used as?
It's still commercial.
Yeah, it's
look at it,
commercial.
yeah,
I have like a retail clothing store in there, and I've had that since 2019. And I've obtained a business license through the city of Lula. I pay property taxes as commercial. All my utilities are listed as commercial. My gas, natural gas, power bill. My mortgage is a commercial. My insurance is business commercial. So we just weren't aware that it was residential on paper, but obviously dating it back to the 1930s, it's been some kind of business.
I've got a question for you, Dennis. In the packet that you give us, section 1301 and 1302, you know, the permitted uses, is that, what zoning classification is that? I know 1400s include highway business district, but what is the zoning that's covered under section 1300?
That's
Neighborhood.
neighborhood shopping.
Neighborhood
There's a
shopping.
title for prior
Okay.
to each one of those.
Okay. And it looks like, yeah, I know you highlighted, a couple of items on there, one being, restaurants, not.
Well, I only did
including-
that because we had a gentleman that inquired about the restaurant.
Because of a specific,
Right.
inquiry. Yeah, so neighborhood shopping would allow a restaurant, but not a drive-through facility, whereas the highway business district would allow a restaurant with
If the council
drive-through
was to
facility.
approve that type of use. yes.
Right, and of course, all of that, would require, proper placement and
Yeah,
access.
the challenge is the lot size itself, what it can, what it's available to do. We want her to be able to market that property for its use, but I caution that we don't want to define it on her behalf. She's the property owner, she can define that better than we can.
So you're looking at listing this property for sale? Is that how all this came about?
Yes.
Okay.
Been trying for a year, hadn't you?
Yes, it's been for sale.
It's been a long process. Seems like.
Yeah.
First of all, I got a question. Have you got a deadline you need to meet? Have you got a potential customer now that
yes,
wants
I
to
do.
buy that wants to buy it yesterday?
Yes, for the way they've described it to me, I know that they can't tell me everything about the buyer, but some kind of like little small town breakfast and lunch is kind of what they, kind of like a Long Street or a Stew and Q, something to that effect.
And can they wait to the deadline that we have to go through to get this done, or?
I can talk to him. I just can it switch owners in the middle of the process, or would I have to be the owner the entire time? It can switch.
They can come and ask for the rezone as
Yeah,
well.
when I talked to
You're,
them, I
you're
also
still go
recommended
through
that
and then come back and.
they make that pending approval of zoning. So the biggest concern would be, again, is the use with the limitation of the property. I think parking was the big issue that they pointed out,
Right.
and that property is very limited on, just 'cause the build, I think I put in there, square footage of the lot's 3,800. The
Building's
building
2,000.
itself's 1,900. That doesn't leave a whole lot. So, I mean, what can it be used for within reason? And you can't impose that back on you or back to the city. So whatever would suit y'all. But Joey, you wanted to exclude the planning commission, is that correct?
If it's city initiated, that was all I was saying, is that if it's, local government initiated, then there's no sense in going to the planning commission.
Right.
Because the city's already, the council's already made the decision to proceed with the application.
Plus that waives the applicant's fee as well, is that correct?
Yes, it waives the applicant's fee, and so my reason for responding was I just didn't think we could meet
The deadline.
the timeline that Tony had set out. It would probably be April the 17th.
That problem?
before we get
I can talk to him and see. I just want even if it doesn't go through, just for myself to have it as
Yeah,
commercial
well,
as
we've
me.
got, like you said, we've got about 180 properties, the same problem you're in.
Oh yeah,
We were going to address them last year, we got sidetracked.
yeah, it's fine.
So,
I just got the application, looked over it too, but I was just kind of like, how do you fill it out when it's already
Yeah,
used
like-
as this?
yeah, that's.
So what you want to pay attention to is there's 4 districts that you can adopt. And the same thing, you want to be able to market that property with those permitted uses on there. So better for you to decide than us to decide what it's, but I suggested highway business because it's rather broad, but you want to think about that a lot more.
Okay.
Yeah, and also to point out, and I appreciate you including this in there, is also the commercial business district, which is inclusive of the highway business.
Right.
It includes all the highway business that was
Yep.
mentioned, with some other items in there. So I would want to make sure you're aware of that as well. It's the CB, Commercial Business District, and it's covered in section 1600.
Okay.
So just maybe aware of that.
Do you have this packet?
No, I don't.
They'll send you home with one.
Thank you. Thank y'all.
You got enough?
Thank you, Macy. Good job. Let's see, what we're down to?
Is council gonna take this up on Monday, because even the 17th, I've gotta I have to notify the newspaper before the actual publication, and so, to get it even for the 17th, we gotta get on our horse to get that done and get our notices out. So if y'all can have an answer whether the lady is going to file on her own, or if council is going to
I think it needs to be a council issue. That's my personal opinion.
Y'all will just be prepared to vote on that by Monday so that, somebody can communicate with the
Right.
owner to look through what Dennis has recommended to you so that we know as a city what to put on the application for the proposal.
But we still need her input as to what she wants to, unless she wants to try to sell it as it's zoned now and then let them come in and make the application.
But all I'm telling you is if I can know that Monday evening, we can move forward. If I don't know it Monday evening, I'm not sure I can hold it to the 17th.
We're trying. Okay, the 365 Inland Port, have they decided on a date yet?
No, I just keeping y'all in the loop. I hadn't gotten anything new, but you know how important this is for us to participate in, so no, the answer to that.
Okay. Now, the next one, on to review the building permit. It's a shocker to me.
So let me just tell you, we've got that in review right now. There are so many holes in it that I had to chastise them today on what they haven't presented. One, if I was opening up a convenience store, I'd want to make sure that I understood the requirements of the beer and wine license. I've been telling that. It's in the overlay district, doesn't have fire marshal approval, the plans are not complete. The sewer and infrastructure, water is not to the property, sewer is. These are all things that they need to do their homework on. And frustrating for us because it can't be an expectation back on it. We don't design what their water lines are. They had to make application for beer and wine license. You know, they didn't submit the canopy details. They didn't submit anything for the canopy for the gas pumps, and those were all things that are common. And being in the overlay district, it kind of changes the makeup because you have to have signage, landscaping, material build, all those things to make sure they qualify. And now, with that requirement, you can't check a box unless you've checked all of them. Does that make sense to y'all?
Yeah.
So I
Also-
don't know how quick that thing's going to move because they haven't even submitted the fire marshal yet.
If everybody wants to know what we're talking about, it's 6825 Belton Bridge Road. It's at this corner of Belton Bridge Road and Expressway. That's the property. Been cleared off
This side of Belton,
on this side of Belton Bridge, on this side of Expressway.
where's sewer line?
Yeah, where sewer line I was,
That's what I was gonna
Where-
ask.
that's why I read.
Good deal, you read my mind.
I mean, I brought up
That's good.
today, you know, there's not water to the property, and
Right.
goes, there isn't?
Right.
And I said, no, it's 1,700 feet away.
Yeah.
So,
We talked about running that
well, we did.
2 years
And,
ago and didn't do it.
well, we always said that it would be developer driven.
Yeah.
So
That's-
2 years, we don't want to have to pay the expense that's coming at the cost of somebody else. I mean, it shouldn't be a burden to the taxpayer
Right.
to pay that for something that the, you know, private sector is going to benefit from, but, you know, it'll pay its yields.
BP.
BP,
It's,
it is not.
our competitor, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know how that
It may be the
works.
one down White Sulphur too.
Yeah.
Maybe the owner down there.
But do we really need another gas station out there? We're not looking at.
Well, the property zone for that to be allowed, so that's gonna be your challenge.
It's gonna be up to them to get it right.
So another convenience store, the problem is that property reflects its use could be applied. And we need 10 BP stations, that's not, we don't get to decide that either, but I agree with you. How many is too many?
And the Plan Commission on April 4th is going to hear a proposed variance for,
5561 Shocker
yeah,
Road.
55, I lost it. For an event venue. So, Plan Commission will hear that on the first Tuesday
Right.
Yes, yes.
of April.
That's been advertised for April 4th.
April 4th and April 17th.
Yep.
Because it's, our council member, Ms. Denise, and her husband, the planning commission has requested a special master to hear that in lieu of the planning commission, and that's not uncommon. And I've made arrangements, Wes Robinson has agreed to handle that, and all that means is that he council will have the same option. If you're comfortable, there's no per se conflict, but if you believe a special master ought to hear that, but it's a fellow council member, then Mr. Robinson would do that as well. Otherwise, all we'll do procedurally is when we reach that item on the agenda, Denise obviously would come down and be at the podium to present. And then I generally ask for the council member, unless council has questions, that they go ahead and leave the room so that there's no question of any favoritism, bias, whatever you want to say, just to make sure we run it as best as we can.
I see no problem with anybody else. Sounds like a plan to me. Happy birthday, Mordecai. Happy birthday. 98 years old. Hope you had a good one. The Lula ladies are meeting at the depot on the 22nd, next Wednesday, from noon, and it's 6 or 6:30, 6 o'clock?
No, it's 6:30.
That's what I thought. I thought it was 6:30. What do I know?
And anybody wanting more information about it, new people come all the time, so just talk to me about it.
Show
Love
up.
to have it.
Just show up, right? Well, that
Just show up with your casserole dish. No additional charge.
or the popcorn. And the Historical Society meets the fourth Monday of the month at the depot. Is that correct still?
Yes.
Okay. And Railroad Days, May 5th and 6th. Moves in the park. We don't have movies in the park. And the council's got to decide what movie. Is that correct?
Oh, we've made that decision.
Yay.
Remember, you were here that day.
I was. But my memory's not what it used to be.
Well, that's all right. You know, it's one of those, we decided nobody liked it, we blame it on Chip.
That's all right.
Well, wait, the good news is you're in charge of the movies, but Tony is in charge of the weather.
Oh, all right. I'll make sure it's good.
Yeah.
I'd rather be in charge of the movie.
That's what I'm saying. You came out like a
I'd
bandit.
rather be in charge of the movie.
You can't lose. And the entertainment agreement is,
So we've approved the entertainment contract. You'll have 5 performances that day, and that'll run all day Saturday.
and the GMA convention is June the 23rd to the
27.
27th. Got registered by March 30th. This is for council.
Register on March 30th.
Okay, yeah.
Not
Yeah.
before, it's that day and that day.
At 9:01, you better have had your registration.
Yes.
So we.
If you can get logged
Yeah,
in
so
at
we
9:01.
want to talk y'all through this. So everybody has a copy of it now. So between now, March 30th is just around the corner. I want you to come see Tangi and I. One, we can tell you a little bit more about the classes that are going to be offered. Here's what happens. At 9:10, every class is already booked. 9:10 in the morning. You start at 9 o'clock and every hotel is already gone. We can't remedy that. We've been doing this for too many years. Here's what we found out. Each one of y'all have to do it independently because you can't put them in the system fast enough. That's what it boils down to. Denise learned, and the frustration for us is you'll end up taking a class because that was all that was available. So we can help you with a little bit of direction on that. We can give you some ideas about the number of hotels that are available and what have you, but you got to be ready, Freddie, at 9 o'clock to register. And unfortunately, I'd like to say, because Chip asked me earlier, is Tangi going to be able to do this? By the time Tangi entered one, the rest of the classes would already be gone. That's how quick, and it's a problem that GMA has that I wish they'd correct. But I'd like to tell you it's gotten better. It hasn't.
Oh, my goodness.
I would recommend to choose your top 3.
Yeah, and if you'll come by, we can give you some indication, especially because a lot of y'all are new, what classes, because you want to eventually be certified, so you want to try to check off as many of those certified classes as you can, and we can kind of point you in the direction of pick this, go that, and it's going to be your availability too, because I think the classes are as early as Thursday,
Yes.
as late as Tuesday. So it's gonna be your availability to what you can have and what day they offer that class. So come by and see, Tangi Ride. We'll try to give you some good direction on that. You'll use the city credit card. So, we need to get you all that information in advance as well. Or, just to let you know, you can use your own credit card and we'll reimburse you. We can have all that discussion later on.
Or use Garnett's credit card. Had to throw it in there before he did. Okay, we did it so far. I guess now we need to go to executive session. I entertain a motion for that.
I make a motion, we go into executive session.
Do you want to hear citizen comments on item 25 before we go forward?
Yeah, we can go.
Yeah, I don't think we should cut them out.
Okay. I wasn't going to, I was going to go when we got back, but we can do it. We're going, the
Good now.
committee meetings, we'll do that when we go back. Is that fair enough? You want to schedule committee meetings now? You want to try to schedule 2 committee meetings now?
Yeah, I need to grab my phone. I need to do that
Downtown.
so I can get my dates.
Downtown's Tony and Chip.
Chip, did you have a date? Didn't you have a date picked out for that one?
I thought we were doing it tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's not happening.
Comprehensive plan.
That's right. I had it on my calendar for tomorrow.
We tried.
Tony and Denise is the other one.
And it can really, it doesn't have to be a Thursday, it can be whenever, I just,
Tony and Denise Street Committee.
but I would say, Tony, you're on street committee, right?
Yes.
So why don't we try and do it so that they're both on the same day? That way you can knock out 2 in one day. The mayor can knock out 2 in one day. Dennis can knock out 2 in one day.
So when are we're trying to do this next week?
Or Friday.
I'm not available.
Oh, that's right.
I'm good for this week. Surgery Tuesday, Wednesday, tomorrow. I can't do Friday.
So next week, possibility.
Guess that's
Next
next week.
week. Well, we've got meeting Monday. I cannot do Tuesday. I'm off Wednesday.
Wednesday, I can't do next week.
Okay, I get off at 6 on
And,
Thursday.
well, I can do Thursday.
I'm off at 6 on
So Thursday, 6 p.m., that's.
Most
first
gets off
available?
at 6.
I get off at 6.
Oh,
so
yeah. So
give me to
do you wanna-
6:15.
Thursday at 6 is fine.
Well, although that could
6
still
to
work
6:30.
because 6 o'clock,
Yeah.
the downtown beautification can
Yeah,
meet.
y'all
can do
can
that.
meet.
And that gives her time, plenty enough time to get here by 6:30, 6:45.
Downtown
whatever.
at 6 and the street committee at 6:30, 6:45, 7 o'clock.
Yep.
All right. Let's call it 7 o'clock. We usually allow an hour for a meeting.
So what I don't have, and this goes back to being prepared,
Uh-oh.
what does
What the
the
agenda?
downtown beautification committee, tell me what items you want on the agenda so I can be, or do you just want to talk in general and then we'll just develop it from there? I just don't want to walk in the meeting and I don't have what y'all are looking for.
But one thing that they mentioned was the car rally. Is that correct?
But I don't know that we'll be ready to have interviews by then. I mean, I haven't talked to the first architect or design architect yet. I've got 2 phone calls in.
I would say, let's just make it, because this is the first time that
Right.
we've met as this committee has been put together. Why don't we just make it an opportunity for us to go over,
What you supposed to do?
what we're supposed to do, things that Tony might have going on in his head, what I might
Well, as an
have.
example, some of the things we talked about, the banners that we
Yeah.
said that we proposed.
Street sign? No.
Right.
The banners, lights, and then also, I know you're talking about these architects and designers. We would certainly want to know more about that process, even though we don't have one. But other resources that have been utilized in the past for proposed ideas and.
So
and
we're
developments.
looking to other cities just to let you know where they've been successful with their design architects. So if you want to go outside of that, I mean, I'm trying to follow where the breadcrumbs have taken the other communities and
Yeah.
they've found
And-
success.
And we'd like general information regarding DDAs and, because I know there's an expiry through the state of Georgia if they don't meet. So would just some basic concepts on what a DD, what it would take to.
So we have
the potential of
legislation that
using a
was
DDA.
passed, and we can certainly cover that, good example of putting things on the agenda. So we have legislation that will pass for our adoption of the membership on the DDA. So
Okay,
hasn't been enacted, but the availability is there for you.
excellent, excellent. So those are all items that we we want to talk about.
Yeah, all
in
that
more
on the
detail.
agenda.
Short meeting.
Well, the one that worries me is the architect design. I don't know any other way to go other than follow what everybody else has found success with. But if you want me to wait, I'll hold back until we meet. I'll be glad to do that. I mean, I've already got a call into 2 design architects.
Full steam
And
ahead.
I'm hoping that, I want to get 4 or 5 and
Yeah.
see what others have done. But if you'd rather me wait, we can put that off until we meet with the committee.
Carry on.
Yeah, we can put that off and just talk about the other topics.
So you want me to put that off, or the mayor wants me to keep going?
We
Which is it?
we want to.
Well,
to
you keep talking to them and try to get feedback from them. Get them in here.
Well, I'm just trying to get appointments
yeah,
with
we
them
don't,
so
we
we
don't
can.
need all 5. You
Huh?
know, if that's what you're trying
But
to get.
he needs to contact them though.
Yeah, but they're not going to be here next week.
No.
I mean, that, which
No.
I need to make clear. I mean, I had the first conversation. I've got calls in for 2, but they
That's
haven't
what I
called me
meant. That's
back.
what I meant by keep contacting them.
Okay.
That's what I meant by
Yeah,
carry.
we still want to meet our committee.
Oh,
Yeah.
I know.
But
Yeah.
but they don't have to be there. But he needs to keep contacting them though,
Yes.
so they can get here eventually.
Gotcha.
And just for clarity, the date is a week from tomorrow,
The
6 o'clock.
23rd, 6 o'clock.
That's the 23rd.
Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and get to system comments. Anybody got want to say?
Hey, how are y'all doing?
Hello.
For the record, that's Amanda Browning, 5657 Julian Ball Road.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So the Lord spoke to my spirit and he gave me 3 words. The first of those words would be dignity. Dignity means the state of being worthy of an honor or respect. I have been completely transparent with my feelings for our current mayor, Joe Thomas, and councilman, Gene Bramlett. To say their conduct is disappointing would be an understatement. If you have not read the 45-page investigation or 21-page sexual harassment investigation, I have copies and would be glad to provide you with one. The only dignity for Mayor Thomas and Councilman Bramlett would have been for the 2 of them to resign, as they were asked to do by their fellow council. My second word is strife. Strife is to create conflict. The cancer in our community grows because of secret Facebook posts, click forums, and keyboard warriors. The continued strife has created such a discord between people in Lula that once was a pleasant town that I was proud to live and work in has been transformed into a day-to-day circus with a ringmaster and 3 clowns. I'm sure there's no need to name them. If you know, you know. Or read one of the investigation's printed news articles or online postings. My third word would be accountability. Accountability is the willingness or obligation to explain one's actions or to admit being cause of a problem. This should be a reminder to everyone at this council and the mayor, you are elected. A group of people chose you to represent them. Representing them doesn't mean you say what you think is most pleasant because you are worried you may not get voted back in. It means being accountable to the job you have been given. It means you are elected to make the hard decisions. It means being popular opinion or not. The right decision would have been to listen to the people. The right decision would have been to stand up for dignity. And the right decision would have been to speak out against the strife that we see day to day in our town. But because you wouldn't fight for this town that we love, we are fighting. We, the people, will no longer stand by as this cancer continues to fester. Today, we picked up our application for the recall of Mayor Joe Thomas and Councilman G. Bramlett. I will be posting dates, times, and the address available to sign our application. 100 signatures of people living within city limits is needed to pursue our application for a recall. If you live within the city limits, I urge you to join us in this fight to take our home back. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Anybody else want to?
My name is Roy Hall. I live at 5152 Mountain View Parkway. And I would say greetings to y'all in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. And I pray that his blessings upon each and every one of you. He'd make his face shine upon you. But have you ever heard the term kick a dead horse? No pun intended on horses. This horse is dead, buried, and flowers have died on the grave. There's nothing to this. All this is, my Bible says, where envy and strife is every evil work. And every time this keeps coming up, all it does is promote strife and contention. Well, we know where that comes from. That comes from demonic. Because all this is a bunch of false information, accusations that are not true. And I would encourage people, as well-intended as they may be, and no disrespect to anybody. I ain't disrespecting nobody. I don't expect them to disrespect me. I'm entitled to my opinion. She's entitled to her opinion. Anybody else is entitled to their opinion. I happen to be of the understanding the folks that voted these two folks into this position are not being represented in this room. Maybe a few are, but widely people are in support of you, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Councilman. So don't pay any attention to all the noise. God is watching who is doing right and who is doing wrong. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Roy. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, you had asked me at a previous meeting, not before this meeting, to function as a parliamentarian. These items have been brought before council. Citizen comment is for council to be heard, and you've heard what has been said. We did get a new item that was mentioned about an election recall, but citizen comment is not necessarily brought forth so that anybody can have a forum to speak. And of course, y'all can talk with folks anytime you want, but I would ask the folks with public comment that the items that have been brought before council before they've heard, I would guess, more than once based upon what's been stated, and any repetition would just be out of order.
Good timing. Robert Grizzle, 640 Narramore Way. I was actually going to sit this one out, but not kicking a dead horse because the accusations have been justified by an investigator. But on that comment, Mr. Holmes, and what went on last week about old business and new business, when old business has not been settled, it's continued business and remains new business. Sweeping bad problems under the rug does not make it old business. When the problems have not even been attempted to be addressed in a proper manner by any way whatsoever, it's not old business. So continued business is continued business, which is still new business. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Anybody else?
Appreciate you representing.
Felton Wood,
Felton Wood, how you doing?
6759.
Okay, about time. Yeah,
6759
6759 Belton Bridge Road. Okay.
Did you interrupt?
Give me my time.
Self-control,
Give me my
self-control.
time. Okay, my name's Felton Wood. How you doing? Okay, I'm glad that you, Mr.
Make your comments to the council. That's the whole purpose of the public comment. I appreciate it.
I'm glad that the lawyer stood up and trying to stop this, what's going on. Now, when y'all to visit the charter, y'all, we got too many chiefs up here. First of all, we elected a mayor. Not to a mayor, to designated the powers over to the city manager. Now, as citizens, we need to turn around and be involved when y'all change this charter. Yes, there's accountability needs to be in place for each and every one of you. And also Hall County too. Thank you.
Thank you, Pelton. Anybody else? All right. You want to do council comments now? Chip?
Yeah, so once again, Mordecai, happy birthday. 98 years, I can't even begin to fathom 98 years. It's hard for me to fathom my own 51 years. But happy birthday. Also, thank you for everyone that came out. We got a pretty good crowd tonight. Thank you for your comments and keeping it relatively civil. And let's continue to have these conversations. And let's just do it with some tact and decorum as we've done tonight. Let's continue to do that. Thanks again for everybody coming out.
All right, got it?
I'd like to say happy birthday to Mr. Mordecai, and to make it 98, I think you've had to do a lot of things right. I appreciate you.
I want to say something to all of you. How much I appreciate your leadership, your intention on moving this city forward and everything. I've had the best birthday anybody could ever have. Thanks to each and every one of you, the leaders and everybody. I never felt so loved and accepted anywhere. I wish my parents were living to see what kind of son they tried to raise. But there are three things I learned in my life. There is a time to stand up. There is a time to speak up. And there certainly is a time to shut up, and that's my time now.
Thank you, Mordecai.
I will just have to tell y'all how much he loves coming to these meetings, because his party, we did it where the drop-in stopped at 5:30. And so he says, you know, it was getting closer because he likes to be here early. And he says, I'm ready now. And so, you know, so that's how much he enjoys coming to these meetings and wanting to be a part of Lula, is that he loved his birthday party, but I looked down and he was putting his shoes on the closer it got to 5:30, because he was ready to come to the meeting, weren't you? Yep.
All right,
I heard the sheriff called you this afternoon. Is that right? Didn't the sheriff call you this afternoon?
Sheriff Couch.
Yeah, the sheriff did call.
He told me he had a warrant for your arrest, 98 years young.
Once again, my heart goes to all of you. I appreciate all of you, okay?
All right, Gene.
I just want to say I appreciate all y'all coming, all y'all's comments is appreciated. Y'all keep coming back, and have a nice out here. Thank you for coming. Good to see all y'all. Congratulations, what a kind of late in 98.
All right, Denise.
My turn. Happy birthday, Mordecai. I appreciate everyone coming out, and I'm glad we're continuing to have a pretty decent crowd. And I see people that's just started recently showing up, and they've returned, so that's a good thing.
Well, first, I want to say happy birthday again to Mordecai Wilson. One of the things that several, in the audience may not be aware of is that a lot of times when Mordecai gives his comments, we often get a printed copy of what he's taken the time to prepare. And let me tell you, it's incredible, and I value, the statements that you make, and I keep those, and I do read those. So thank you so much, Mordecai, and happy birthday. I wanted to also just make mention that, as Chip kind of alluded to earlier in the session, that we did get an opportunity to go to some GMA training a couple of weeks ago. And I brought my book with me. It's a nice, big, hefty book full of information, several different core subjects. And everyone up here has gone through it, and I'm telling you, this is an invaluable, piece of information for us to use. And I appreciate the GMA and the City of Lula putting us through this training, and it allows us to be very effective at what we do. And I just wanted to thank you all for that opportunity. Thank you.
And every word written in that book was covered in a 2-day period. No lie.
Every word.
And then some. Joe, you want to talk to us, or you?
No,
Okay. That's why I like a quiet lawyer. I
I do have one thing. Y'all should have gotten an invitation for the District 2 meeting for GMA in April. It's in Dahlonega. Have y'all seen? Actually, it may be the 26th. Let me look. See if I've got it.
I've got it. I don't remember the date either.
If you haven't, you have to, the reason I bring that up is I think I'm the only one that's registered for that, and I don't know if y'all had a plans of an attendance are going or not. I'm not showing it on this one. Yeah, but they were all copied on it. So
Yeah.
if you haven't, if you're gonna get the opportunity to go, they just need to know a head count because they provide lunch. So just let them know.
I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. I really appreciate y'all being here, and we're going to try to do it again next week. But now I want to entertain a motion to go to executive session.
I'll make a motion to,
That's what he wants, apparently.
make a motion to go into executive
We
session.
shouldn't be long.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Chip Horst, seconded by Denise Shaw to go to executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We probably won't make any decisions, so if y'all want to leave, you're welcome to leave, but you can hang around too. So we're going to another room.
Darn it, trying to go.
Is this immediate, or is this a smoke with you got 'em? Smoke with you got 'em.
Take it 10? Okay.
10 minutes.
Yeah, you're ready to go home. I didn't left there. Last company. Hey, sweet lady. How are you? That's what you were talking about. I thought that's what you were talking about. And Danny brought it up to me too, and I said, well, they needed, that's what I was trying to figure out.
Good morning, guys. Happy birthday.
Can I give you a call, tentative, tonight? Yeah. See if maybe, you think tomorrow, or should it be? Tomorrow? Yeah. I'll do it. I'll do it.
I needed some fresh air, though. Right. How are you? I'm glad you got me from right. Yeah. I had a problem. I don't know what was going on. It straightened out now. I don't know what it was. Nobody could tell me. They wouldn't work. It was like they were asleep, but they wouldn't tell me or anything, and I got followed every morning to get up out of bed. And it takes me a minute everything to start. Acting like they worked it, I took care of them, and they still showed nothing, but it finally, after about 6 months, quit. Yeah, well, we already had talked about it, I don't know what I did.
she done said she knows you know something her place tonight, so she'll probably do something herself and just blame it on me.
Gotta make a motion to go in, make a motion to go out, and then come in to make a motion to go out again.
Make a motion to go home.
That's right.
I don't think anybody seconded.
It sure is, cause I'm starving.
I didn't hear it.
I didn't hear a second. Who seconded?
We got Chip seconded.
Okay.
He's not gonna argue with you.
Did everybody say aye?
All right, let's go back in.
Oh, gosh.
All right.
Go ahead.
We made took no action during the executive session, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Gene Bramlett to adjourn.